A new AI warning that we need to talk about is from our good friend Bill Gates and also another big tech billionaire. They're both stating what? What will AI accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years? We talked a little bit about this the other day, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth into a news story from the New York Post. Also, we're going to talk about Russia. What just happened in Russia? Two things. And both of those are not helping with the negotiations of peace. Now, the thing is, we may want peace, but the European Union, as we talked a few days ago, may not. And we're going to discuss what just took place, and there's no answers for it. Also, we're going to discuss a 72-hour go bag that the European Union is pushing. Also, they're telling people in Europe to make sure you have enough supplies to make it for 3 days. Are we seeing the fact that of them talking prepping and them talking making sure you have the necessities? Are they showing that they're fixing to escalate this war with Europe? We're going to discuss what NATO, one of the NATO partners, just told American troops and what he said he demands from America. Also, we're going to talk about the Overton window when it comes to Republicans versus Democrats. We're going to discuss the plan for the Democrats, not really with just congressional elections, not the midterms, but for presidency. I believe they've really worked on what they're doing to make someone look more moderate, and you will be blown away at what I'm fixing to say. Also, we're going to talk about the Republicans. I think because that Overton window has shifted so much that it makes the Republicans not as conservative as sometimes we would like. Before you get mad at me, let's talk about that story, and let's go over my thoughts on the movement of conservatism. And then lastly, what about this Pentagon breach? There was someone trying to break into the Pentagon. Is our politics and our polarization with the Tesla situation, with all this, is it getting too much? We'll discuss that today, and how safe are we actually in America? Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so very much for being here. We're humbled by your presence here today, and thank you so much. We hope that you get something out of our videos, such as wisdom, something thought-provoking, or some common sense that you can say, you know what, I hadn't thought about it like that. That is true. And that way maybe you and your family can grow together, learn how to navigate this crazy world that we live in. Now, let's jump into today's stories. Before we do, remember, subscribe to the channel. We do a giveaway each and every month. We do a giveaway here, a Life at Colby Mag, and we also do a giveaway on the Max Life, all 3 channels. So make sure you're subscribed to all of them, and that way you will be entered into the giveaways. And comment below. Tell us what you think about the content of today. Now, let's jump into these stories. First, let's talk about Russia and Europe. And the reason I want to bring this up is because it does pertain to us. Now, we're trying to promote peace. We've had convoys. We've had talks with Trump and Putin about trying to find peace. 2 things happened in Russia yesterday. First, let's talk about those, and then we're going to talk about what Europe just came out and stated. First report that came out of Russia, Vladimir Putin's limo blows up in massive explosion. Now, of course, he was not in there, but it said there was a huge fireball with a Moscow street. Now, they're saying, well, we don't know what caused it. I think Russia does not want to admit that it could be, someone on the inside, or it could be some problems with assassination attempt. At first, they pushed off, well, it could be just a malfunction. I think that was a major escalation, and it was a direct threat. Now, you think about it. If all of a sudden this man gets harmed, or Zelensky, I'm just saying, if either side leader gets harmed in their main capital, I think we're going to see escalation no matter what we want as in peace, because even though we're talking about peace, it's getting more and more dire for the opposing side that's wanting war to keep on pushing, and I think they're pushing they're pushing very, very close to no turn back. Meaning the escalation is right there at the cusp. You're seeing more drone attacks in their capitals. You're seeing more chances of imminent warnings to the leaders. I mean, for instance, did you hear just a few days ago, Zelensky said there could be an imminent threat on Putin's life. He said he needs to go. Now, when you start hearing those kind of threats, that doesn't sound like peace, does it? Well, all of a sudden, Putin's limo gets blown up. It's a pretty big deal. And I think if that would have actually happened and he would have been inside, I think that would have been a monster escalation that I don't know if we could turn back from. There was also another report that says an unknown virus has appeared in Russia that caused coughing up blood, high fever, almost like symptoms such as flu and COVID. However, they're coming up negative on those reports. According to publications, those who fall ill initially feel slightly unwell, but but after a few days the condition worsens. They cannot get out of bed. They have a high temperature and a very severe cough. So we see two instances that happened literally in the last day or so, where we had almost an attempt on the leader's life, and then now some unknown virus. Now, again, for me personally, I'm just going to be honest with you. America shouldn't even be dealing with this. We shouldn't even be dealing with the news cycles on this. This is a European problem or a Russian problem. This is a regional problem, not really Americans' problem. But however, for instance, there was a leader from the NATO, a Finnish leader, that said, we will see troops on the ground in Ukraine. We're going to see U.S. troops on the ground. Now, did you agree to that? No. Or did I agree with that? Or did Trump agree with that? No. But what I'm saying is that's how much Europe wants to see this war happen. I told you a few days ago with that financial expert said there's no way that Europe can come out smelling like a rose, because they've put themselves in such a migration issue and such a debt issue that they have to have conflict and escalation of this war so they can make their economy grow again. That's a sad way of looking at it. But the guy was just being honest. He said, it's sad. It's heartbreaking. That's why they don't want to see a peace agreement. They need to see more war so it keeps their economy pushing, keeps them printing money, and it keeps it look like there's a problem there. When really, if we promote peace and have peace, what actually will happen is you'll start seeing a demise of the economy in some of these European countries, which would make the liberals look bad, because that's who's winning in Europe right now. For instance, what did Europe just put out? They just put out a very, very unique video about how you need to have a 72-hour go bag and have at least 72 hours worth of food and drink put up as an emergency preparedness. Now, it's funny, I preach prepping all the time. And I talk about that because I think it's one of those things that we need to make sure that we're prepared. I told you yesterday, if you saw yesterday's video, I think stockpiling is very good. But while all of a sudden, in a country that is trying to escalate a tense situation in, the eastern part of Europe and also in Russia, that all of a sudden they put out these propaganda videos about prepping, about go bags, about needing safety and security and needing food and water. Is that trying to push enough narrative to where people won't be so freaked out if all of a sudden there is escalation of war? The attempt, the virus, and all of a sudden now you see that Europe is coming out and saying, oh, look, it's not bad to have preparedness and have a 72-hour go bag and 72 hours worth of food and water. It says the European Union has prepared a survival advisory in preparation just in case war breaks out with Russia. Europe is facing an epic disaster should NATO, minus US, go to war. Just like I said with that Finnish leader, he said, we will go to war and we will expect US to pretty much be there too, boots on the ground. Now that's dangerous. And you start hearing this escalation. You start seeing this push. Even though we're pushing for peace, they're provocating more escalation. Just like Zelensky's talking he literally said, I'm not going to sign a peace agreement. He literally thinks that the European Union can float him. And that's untrue. What people don't realize, the European Union. Okay, let's talk about the Houthi shipping situation. Without Americans' intervention, Houthi shipping situation would get worse. Now remember, America has two coastlines. If shipping hurts us in one area, we have a whole other coast that we can get stuff brought in. Did you know that where the Houthi is causing the issues, you know who that benefits the most? Not America. It's like 2 to 5% of our goods go through there. But you know what? Not just China and Russia, but European Union. Like 40% of their shipping goods come through that area. And they can't take care of their boats. So even with us telling them we're going to tariff you, even though we're telling them we're not going to go to war with you, and even though we're telling them I'm kind of worried about the NATO alliance, we're still taking care of them by providing them safety through the Houthi passage to where they won't get destroyed, so they can have an economy that won't fall into shambles. So isn't it amazing how they're trying to provocate a war? They're trying to provocate an economy to grow based on escalation, while we're trying to promote peace and actually taking care of them with the Houthis and trying to make sure that they get their ships through passage so they can have goods coming from the people that they're wanting to escalate war with, like Russia, that they're buying a lot of goods from to get to their ports in Europe. It's just truly amazing that we're seeing this. And when they come out and start saying, we're going to make a go bag and we're going to make sure that you have everything you need and you need 72 hours worth of supplies because of this escalation, they're already trying to promote and trying to propagandize what they're wanting. And not only that, they're trying to make sure that they bring America into the fold. I hope American politicians, and I hope Congress, and I hope Trump will stand strong and stay out of these kind of wars. This is how they'll try to bring us into it, through NATO and through, oh my gosh, we need help. Please come help us. And then there again, here we are, forever war in an area we shouldn't be in, along with the fact that there's several other superpowers now that has nuclear capabilities. Very big deal. You know, I brought up a few days ago about what Elon said about AI. This is from the New York Post. It says, Bill Gates says AI will replace doctors, teachers within 10 years and claims humans won't be needed for most things. Now, I kind of made mention of this story just a few days ago about how he was talking about humans were not that important. What did I say? I mean, I said this months ago, how what they're going to do is they're going to go with this global push where humans will be basically given UBI, Universal Basic Income. Humans will need government to provide their needs when it comes to food and to have insurances and to have all this basic necessities of life. Normal daily living things. I mean, look at how we've built a economy where we're finding out what fraud is from Doge, but people are up in arms about it because that hurts their money coming into their pocket, such as some of the waste, fraud, and abuse. Think of how the SNAP thing, you know, with how that became such a big deal with people saying, well, instead of letting them buy whatever, they don't need to buy junk food. And man, that became a big issue. Why are those things becoming big issues? Because what you're doing is you're hurting those programs that is giving money to people overall. Did you know that there was a tax incentive that Doge just came out with, that illegal immigrants can get up to $14,000 back of tax returns when they may not even be paying into the system? So if they're here legally and they're either working and paying taxes or working and not paying taxes, there's a new program for government that Doge just exposed that showed that even Jackson Hewitt employees, a tax helper company, was trying to give tax refunds and help tax refunds get to people who were not even here illegally. 14,000, up to 14,000. So this is the kind of stuff that we've got to find waste, fraud, and abuse through, because what we're doing is our taxpayer dollars are just going to nothing, to frivolous waste. Well, I think what we're seeing is if we put more people on the government's dole, if we make sure that the government is providing food, water, necessities, insurances, and safety, security, stimulus, what they're actually doing is giving us UBI. And that exactly plays right into the globalist hand of saying, well, AI is going to be so smart that you're not really needed in human work anymore. So if they start taking your jobs, if AI starts taking your jobs like teachers and doctors and lawyers and legal scholars, and then all of a sudden you're not needed as much, what that means? That means you're either going to develop a major recession or depression because everybody's going to be out of work. And so therefore it allows the government to step in and say, well, you know, we'll just give you all this stuff. We'll just give it all to you. I mean, at least you'll be okay. We'll take care of you. So we overtax some people. Then we find that there's waste, fraud, and abuse. And then people complain. And now this report just shows that AI is willing to take jobs. This is why I tell you to get out of debt. Make sure you stockpile cash and you start building some sustainable independence. Because if you do not, you will be there standing in the bread line, standing in the bank line, trying to turn your cash into digital currency so then they can control you. You don't believe it? Even this administration, who I really like Trump, but even in this administration, they're pushing for digitized currency. That will not play well for freedom-minded individuals, because remember, the conservatives or Republicans won't have power forever. So if we turn all our money into digital currency, and it can be surveilled, just like I told you the other day, seized by our government, some of the bad players, how safe is our money? How safe is our food system? How safe is all this when we lose our jobs? We're based on the government entitlement programs, and we need government to provide us UBI because we've lost our jobs. When you start hearing people like Bill Gates talk about that, and you start seeing AI getting more and more involved in our everyday life, that convenience actually is going to end up being a liability for most humans when it comes to jobs and taking care of their family. Now, last two stories I want to mention. You know, there was a scuffle at the front of the Pentagon Mall, basically where you enter the mall. And it's not the fact that the guy was showing risk, but the thing was he was trying to do something he shouldn't have been done. You see, there was plenty of cops there. They busted the guy. The thing that worries me is there's reports coming out that the Democrats are funding a lot of this Tesla protest. And then you see people like this where they're trying to break into, you know, areas of our government. Sometimes when we propagandize and we talk so much and we make rhetoric happen and we push narratives from either side, because sometimes people are so and captivated by that, they act upon that. And what I'm scared of is we're starting to see people get paid by the Democrat platform, and then we're starting to see people threaten the well-being of people like J.D. Vance, or attempts on Trump, or the situation where people are trying to break into the Pentagon. I mean, these are big deals. And this is why I always tell you that it would not shock me if something, in an instance takes place. Because we're in such a volatile time when it comes to current events in America, but also international events when it comes to all these little conflicts we've got, to where anything and everything can spark off really quick. Kind of goes back to the go bags, goes back to yesterday's prepping videos. We have to pay attention to this kind of stuff, because this kind of stuff, I mean, at any point in time, we could see something bad happen. What if all of a sudden that guy did breach the Pentagon? What if all of a sudden we see these Tesla protests go straight into other businesses and start burning cities down and having major riots again? I mean, are we really ready for that? Do we really want that? All of a sudden, what if they get bad, and all of a sudden then we have to call in martial law to take control, National Guard coming in, and then all of a sudden now you have a PR nightmare for Trump. And it abrupts his whole agenda, because all of a sudden now we're seeing these riots in these cities again. Do you see how quick that can just transpire into nothing good? It can literally spiral out of control that quick. Well, then when we find out that Democrats are paying people to be at these Tesla protests and paying people to cause damage and mischief, it's proven. And we're just allowing it to happen. This is where I kind of say, we have Congress asleep at the wheel. We have Trump trying to do good things. We have his cabinet trying to do good things. But actually what's happening is no one's actually doing anything about any of this. And Congress may get, on Twitter, they may go to Fox News and talk about all the things that they're going to do and how bad this stuff is. But truly, they're not doing anything that actually says, hey, we're going to handle the situation. I mean, for instance, this is what they're worried about, taxing you. There's a new report that Maryland, they can't quit spending. They can't keep taking care of the liberal ideology. They're blowing through taxpayer dollars, and now they want to charge you a sleep tax. So while you're asleep, they want to charge you a mattress sleep tax of 2 to 4%. Now, is that fair to you? No. Instead of cutting their budget, they want to waste more of your money. That's what's happening in Washington. It's happening all over the U.S., where all Congress and all this government wants to do, instead of taking care of its people, it really wants to make sure that it's taking money from you. Instead of cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse that we've been talking about with Doge, it wants to keep giving those entitlements to people and keep letting that fraud take place. The judges are standing against it, trying to make sure that we can get the government lean. I mean, I think we don't realize how bad of a situation that we're in. And when we see these protests, and when we see the fact of more people getting more radicalized, where we're seeing them try to break into the Pentagon and all of a sudden destroy businesses, and all of a sudden the cities are in peril, we see excess tax on people. All those things have one thing in common: that our leadership in our Congress, that our leadership has failed us for so long. That even though Trump can do good things, even though Elon can do good things, bottom line is, we have a long ways to go. And it's not just on the American front. It's on the global front, like we talked about with AI, like we talked about with the escalation of the 72-hour go bag from Europe that's pushing this escalation with the war in Russia and Ukraine. All these things could just go crazy in just an instance. Now, last story I want to bring up, and this deals with the Overton window, and this is where I get real personal on the Democrat and Republican situation. The Overton window has been moved so much that Democrats look extremely liberal, and Republicans look like they're the normal common man again. Now, here's the problem with that. I think conservatives have lost their conservatism. I made a Substack about this yesterday, is that Trump and then the people that he surrounded himself with, even though I really like them, I'm not saying anything bad about them, actually what they are is just more 90s Democrats, almost Clinton-ish Democrats. Now, before you get mad at me, let's just talk about it. Trump was a known Democrat. Howard Lutnick was a known Democrat. He was a Bill Clinton supporter in the 90s, and actually a Hillary Clinton supporter at one time. Scott Bessent, known Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat congressman. RFK comes from Democrat families. Now, why do I bring all that up? I mean, Elon Musk has made comments of that too. Why do I bring that up? It's because we've shifted the Overton window so much that the liberals and leftists has lost their way, that it's made Republicans come more to the center. Now, the problem with that is true conservatism and people like me, I feel like sometimes we don't have a place. Now, I believe Trump is doing great things for the conservative movement. However, what I don't want us to see is we lose our values and we lose our morals all because the liberals have gone so far left. And that's what scares me the most. Now here's the problem. When we see this administration like Trump, and I'm gonna call this, and you may not like it, it's unpopular, but to be honest with you, what makes me upset is when Trump comes out and says he wants to primary people like Thomas Massey, who's a complete and utter conservative, and wants to support people like Lindsey Graham. I have a problem with that. That's what scares me. So are we losing what true conservatism looks like because all of a sudden we're supporting people like Lindsey Graham's and trying to primary people like Thomas Massey's? That's a pretty big deal. Now now that's the Republicans. What about the Democrats? I think the reason you're seeing Jasmine Crockett be so in the news so much is because she's going to keep pushing so left, and it's going to make her look so crazy to most people. I think it's all puppet games. I think while the puppet master's doing this with Jasmine Crockett, what are they doing with Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom has kind of pushed back from all the leftist ideology. He's pushing more to the middle. He's pushing more as a moderate Democrat. Pay attention. That's why he's interviewing all these Republicans and trying to agree with them a little bit here and there, play the middle of the road game. Pay attention to his podcast. Pay attention to what the Democrats are doing with Gavin Newsom. They're making him look completely moderate compared to the people like Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Bernie Sanders. I think that's why they're promoting Jasmine Crockett, AOC, and Bernie so much, is because it's going to make it look like the party is so far left, and then all of a sudden people don't like Trump, they're going to look towards Gavin because he's this moderate now. He's not moderate. He's extremely left. But because the Republicans are not extremely right like they should be in very strict conservatism, when we, again, push against people like Thomas Massey and Ron Paul, but then embrace people like Lindsey Graham, then we have extreme leftists like Jasmine Crockett. It makes the battle be more to the Democrat side, to where you're kind of the center moderate battle with Trump versus Newsom. Watch if that doesn't heat up, and watch why they're promoting Jasmine Crockett. I don't think it's because Jasmine Crockett's a real 28 contender. I don't think, Harris will be a 28 contender. I think it's all setting up for Gavin to be a more quote-unquote moderate contender and kind of a lesser evil of the Democrats. And it's going to make him look extremely good in the coming few years. Pay attention to that. And the Overton window shifting that much, the Overton window shifts to where all the people that once were Democrats now look like conservatives. Hey, that's great to have them on our side, but instead of the right moving more to the center to back some of the ideology of what you see with fiscal conservatism, but more liberal views on morals and values, it scares me, because as a strict conservative Christian, I want to see people move more towards traditional values, more towards traditional family, more towards not only fiscal conservatism, but traditional conservatism. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this video. We went on crazy on a lot of topics, but the point I wanted to make is we're in a situation where we have escalations and talks of war all across the world. We have problems here where we've seen taxation, and we've seen leftists starting to pay for protests to take place. And now we're worried about AI taking our jobs. A lot is going on. Pay attention. The things that you need to pay attention to do: pray for your family, get out of debt, focus on your family, try to be sustainable, and try to build your own food system, and try to do things and work in your community, and make sure you're doing all you can to learn, to gain wisdom, and seek common sense. Guys, thank you so much for watching. God bless.